What did you make of that event last night?
That was the Challenger explosion of press conferences. I mean, it truly was the worst press conference I have ever seen by far. I've been watching these things for well over 20 years at this point, and obviously I've watched a lot of tape. That was horrendous.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's
How
totally
bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad, I let you speak. That's
your memory has gotten worse, Mr. President?
My memory is not gotten. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I've become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot.
When you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, watch me. Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
Not just was it horrendous, it was on purpose, meaning he didn't have to do a press conference last night. The entire purpose of the presser was to dissuade Americans that the special counsel was right about his state of mind and his mental acuity, as you say. And so he calls this press conference at 7:45 at night. So he doesn't even have the excuse of saying it's super late at night, I was really tired or something. He calls it at 7:45 at night, which actually is usually after he calls a lid. Usually he calls the lid like 7 p.m. at a maximum. So he wanders out about 7:55. He doesn't look like he kind of knows what he's doing. He starts off hot for maybe a minute and a half. I mean, I literally played on my show the entirety of the press conference to show how even over the course of 10 minutes, he degrades. I mean, it's an insane thing. The first minute and a half, he is reading off the teleprompter, and then he starts to pretty obviously fall apart. And as you mentioned, he completely wrecks himself over the question of where his son's rosary is from. Again, that is a self-own. Nobody even asked him about it. And he's offering that up and then failing. And then he wanders away, and then he wanders back, and then he makes the mistake mixing up El-Sisi of Egypt with AMLO of Mexico, which, I mean, for the record, might explain why we have an open border. He's asking the wrong guy to close the border. He just keeps calling up El-Sisi and saying, shut the border. And El-Sisi's like, I am shutting the border, but he means the Gaza border.
It's all good.
I mean, what a complete disaster area for the president. It's hard to see, frankly, how he survives this. The media basically now have a choice. The media can either openly report what's going on, and every day from now until the election will be a question about his mental state. I mean, it should have been already, obviously. And as I've been saying for several years at this point, really since he ran again in 2020, I've been saying that watching a press conference with Joe Biden is like watching one of the Walenda brothers trying to cross a volcano on a tightrope, because it might be the moment that he falls off the tightrope into the volcano. And last night, he fell off the tightrope into the volcano. The only question is whether the Democratic Party is so convinced that they can beat Donald Trump with literally a person who is not mentally there, that they decide to stick with him rather than tossing him overboard, or whether it just happens that Joe Biden picked the single best presidential insurance anyone could ever pick by making Kamala Harris his vice president. Because if the Democratic Party looks at the person backing him up, they think, well, here we have a senile old man who can't hold it together for more than about 4 minutes at a stretch. But backing him up, we have the single most unpopular politician in American life. Maybe that was the only clever move that Biden has made during his presidency and pre-presidency, was picking Kamala Harris to back him up, so that the incentive structure is you have to keep him in place. You have no choice.
It actually was pretty brilliant if that was the long game. He knew, because according to the special counsel report, he's been going downhill for quite some time. It's not anything new. Just for the audience at home, there's the double whammy in this report. Number one, he did have classified documents unsecured in various locations in his house, the very thing that Trump is accused of doing. Yes, Trump is accused of doing more than that, namely obstructing attempts to retrieve the documents when the feds came calling. But on the core offense, these two men are accused of doing the same thing, taking a bunch of classified documents home to their houses, keeping them in unsecured locations, including those marked classified or highly classified. So that's the first sin. And the second is the shots that the special counsel took at Joe Biden and the explanation of why, despite the fact that he had done some of the same things as Trump, he didn't think charges could be brought. And that is what's caused all the consternation. To me, it's like the stuff he wrote about Biden's memory is even bigger than the classified documents stuff, because I did not expect the classified document stuff to lead right to an indictment. So here's what he writes in part. This is in the special counsel report. Mr. Biden's recorded conversations with his ghostwriter, Mark Zwanitzer, from 2017 are often painfully slow, with Mr. Biden struggling to remember events and straining at times to read and relay his own notebook entries. In his interview with our office, Mr. Biden's memory was worse. He did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended. Quote, if it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? End quote. And forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term began. Quote, in 2009, am I still vice president? End quote. He did not remember even within several years when his son, Beau, died. And concluded here, Ben, this is important, we have considered, in addition to the rest, that at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. My God. Based on our direct interactions with and observations of him, he's someone for whom many jurors would want to identify with reasonable doubt. It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him, by then a former president well into his 80s, of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. Now, there's a lot to dissect there, including the left's spin on all of this today is that was all gratuitous. He did not have to add the stuff about the memory. That's just him taking a shot, inappropriate shot at Joe Biden, much as Comey, in their view, unfairly took shots at Hillary Clinton. But I mean, you're a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. The guy makes clear why he's mentioning the memory lapses, because he's assessing how this case would go were he to get it in front of a jury.
That's literally the only excuse he has for not prosecuting. Because one of the things that Joe Biden actually did in this case, if you read the entire document, which I spent the time to do yesterday, if you actually read the entire document, one of the things that is very clear is that Joe Biden did the criming on tape. I don't know why it is that politicians violate the first law of criming, which is don't crime on tape. But Joe Biden literally did the crime on tape. He's talking to his ghostwriter, and he literally says, just a minute, I just found the classified documents downstairs. Right? He literally says that on tape. I mean, that's in the actual report. And so what the prosecutor has to come up with is, how can he say that and then simultaneously claim that he wasn't mishandling classified documents? In other words, that's an admission that he knows they're classified documents, and second, that they are where they're not supposed to be, right? And so what the prosecutor has to come up with is some justification for why that doesn't end in the criminal prosecution of the president of the United States. And what he comes up with is, there's no way we can win this at trial, because he's just going to claim that he doesn't remember any of this, and that he didn't remember it at the time, that he's been in a downward mental spiral the whole time. So obviously it's relevant to the question. I mean, beyond that, this dog isn't going to hunt. This is a special counsel who's appointed by the president of the United States' attorney general. So in other words, the person who's working for your own DOJ says that you don't have the mental acuity to be president, and you're going to claim that he is somehow, a deep state agent? I've heard that song and dance before. And what I've been told by the media and by Joe Biden is that if you even say things like that, that is an act of de facto treason. That if you talk about the deep state and lifelong appointees to these sorts of offices, well, that means that you are doubting the system of American government. So any way you turn, Biden is boxed in here. I mean, some of the other defenses that you're hearing, that he tried to trot out last night, that when he did the interview with the special counsel, it was the day after October 7th, and therefore he wasn't all with it, which, I mean, that's worse. Okay, we hire you to do the job predicated on the idea that as president, you're going to face international emergencies. If your answer to that is, I faced an international emergency and suddenly forgot when I was vice president and when my son died, that's not exactly going to quiet the critics. That was one, you heard Rachel Maddow last night claiming that, well, at least he can still ride a bike, which, by the way, he can't. Literally fell off his bike.
Right.
Like, there's just no place to turn here for Joe Biden. And that is why, honestly, this election 2024 is basically, both parties have the same slogan, which is, well, at least it's not that guy. And I don't know that that's going to work for Joe Biden, especially because Democrats' entire claim about Trump is that Trump is Orange Hitler. He's going to destroy democracy. That Biden is the only one standing in the door, preventing all of that from happening. If they really believe that, shouldn't they dump him overboard for somebody who has, any element of vigor and doesn't seem like he needs to be put to bed by the night nurse at 6:30 p.m. after an early bird dinner at Denny's?
Mm-hmm. No, it's definitely tapioca and Matlock time. I mean, that's the obvious conclusion in reading this report. And yet what you have all over the internet today is spin, and more spin. Jim Messina, who ran Obama's first campaign, here's a couple from him. We've got to stop treating a single line in a gratuitously long, heavily editorialized special counsel's report, in which no crime was found, by the way, by a partisan Republican investigator, like it's a bigger liability than Trump's 91 criminal charges and being found liable for rape. And he had more along those lines, Ben. I mean, he was spinning like, the spin master last night. And the thing that he's either missing intentionally or not is The reason, it's not that this single line in the report is changing Biden's trajectory. It's because it affirms, confirms, and dovetails perfectly with the American public's preceding perceptions of Joe Biden. The NBC News poll just out showed 77% of the electorate has either moderate or major concerns about his mental acuity. That's why it's so damning.
Of course, it's all confirming, as you say. And last night, Joe Biden, in the middle of this press conference. So first of all, I don't tend to like to sort of analyze politicians based on their affect, because I'm more interested in what they say and what they do than sort of how they look while they're doing it. But the entire purpose of that press conference was to project an affect. It was to project the affect that he is with it, that he's vigorous, that he's vital, that he still knows what's going on. He looked physically wounded by reporters shouting at him questions, which is sort of the norm in a press scrum like that. I mean, he begged for it. He came back for a second helping of it. And one of the things that he said in the middle of that is one of the members of the press corps asked him about the fact that Americans are deeply concerned about his mental acuity. And his answer to that was, well, just you don't speak for the press. But that, of course, is a lie. I mean, first of all, she may not speak for the press, but she's speaking for the American people. The polling numbers suggest that he is of deep concern in terms of his ability to even do this job. How Kamala Harris doesn't become the center of this campaign from here on out, even if Biden remains the nominee, is beyond me. Would anyone put money on Joe Biden surviving a second term in office? We're in February
God, no.
right now. What is this campaign going to do to him between now and November?
True or false? Using your tax refund to pay off credit card debt is smart. False. Donewithdebt.com published a strategy designed to let you keep your hard-earned tax refund. Wouldn't that be nice? And also reduce or even eliminate credit card debt. Most Americans owe thousands in credit card debt that will take years to pay off, if ever. Done with Debt found that filing bankruptcy is usually not the answer, and taking out loans to pay off credit cards usually increases your debt. When you engage Done with Debt, their legal experts and skilled negotiators take on the credit card companies for you. Their winning strategies are designed with one goal: solve your debt situation quickly and permanently. First things first, chat with a Done with Debt strategist and explore your solutions. Some debt fighting strategies are time sensitive though, so you're going to need to move quickly on this. For a free consultation, visit donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.